It's time for This Week in WordPress, episode number 169, entitled New Platformitis. It was recorded on Monday, the 28th of June 2021. I'm joined, as always, by my good friend Paul Lacey, and this week also by Jamie Marsland and Philip Levine, so that we can have a chat about the WordPress news for this week. And as is always the case, there's plenty to talk about. We first of all get into the CMS market share that WordPress dominates in, 42% and counting, but what comes in second and third place? You may be surprised. We also talk about Elementor. They've produced an article explaining their entire ecosystem by the numbers, and there's a lot of numbers to deal with. Theme lock-in, it was a thing. Is block lock-in going to be a thing as well? We talk about a Justin Tadlock piece on WP Tavern, and then some product news, plugin updates. There's a new product called Orderable, and we also have updates from Astra, the page builder framework, and a significant update from iThemes going over to version 7 and a complete overhaul of their UI. We talk about the fact that I'm going to be doing a WS Form webinar later this week and give you details about how you can join that. And then there's a product over on AppSumo. It's a new page builder, should we need one, called Zion Builder. And you can get it for $99. And finally, we do talk about Ninja Forms and a deal that they've got going on at the minute, just before we round out with our picks of the week. It's all coming up next on This Week in WordPress. This Week in WordPress was brought to you by A/B Split Test. Do you want to set up your A/B split tests in record time? The new A/B Split Test plugin for WordPress will have you up and running in a couple of minutes. Use your existing pages and test anything against anything else. Buttons, images, headers, rows, anything. And the best part is that it works with Elementor, Beaver Builder and the WordPress block editor. Go check it out and get a free demo at absplittest.com. Hey, hello. How is everybody this fine day? It is This Week in WordPress episode number, I've actually got it this time, it's episode number 169. The reason I know that is because it's at the top of the screen I'm staring at, whereas normally that's truncated, because we're trying out a new bit of software. We've been using this fantastic bit of software called StreamYard, but just because technology allows us to try competitive things, we've moved over to a different thing called Restream. So forgive me if the technology breaks, but the intention is that it'll behave exactly as normal. Speaking of normal, Paul Lacey.
What are you trying to say?
I have no idea. How are you doing? You all right?
I'm okay. Yeah. You know, when you like, this is episode 169. All that is in my mind is 169, dude. And I know it's not supposed to be 169, but
Bill and Ted. Yeah,
from Bill and Ted. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Bill and Ted.
Yeah. Thank you for joining me once again, Paul. We've got two brand new faces. We've not had these guys on the show at all. So I'm going to hand it over, as I always do, to Paul to introduce today's fabulous guests.
Alrighty. Well, first of all, we've got Jamie from Pootlepress.
Hi.
And hello, Jamie. And Pootlepress was born 10 years ago, but Jamie is actually definitely older than 10, as far as I can tell anyway. So I guess Pootlepress is the company. Right. And so you have trained over 5,000 people on WordPress in the last 10 years. So I imagine you've got a course, and you do indeed have a course. And you run a WordPress course for The Guardian, which is one of the major newspapers in the UK, probably pretty world famous as well, I think, The Guardian. So I didn't even know The Guardian had a WordPress course, but it does, and you've done it. And also, as well as that, you've got Pootlepress, which is, I think you do agency work, but you mainly focus on the plugins, the series of plugins that you create. And there's a ton of plugins for WooCommerce that you've done. Yeah. And you kind of, I guess your areas, as far as I can tell, is WooCommerce and the block editor. That's your niche. Would that be about right?
Yeah, exactly. We started off as a purely training business, and now we're a training stroke plugin business, essentially. Yeah. And now 100% of our plugins are Gutenberg block editor based plugins. That's what we've invested in over the last 2 years, which has been a fun and challenging and interesting journey for sure.
Yeah, we might get into that, yeah.
In all sorts of ways. Yeah.
Oh, it's great to have you on, Jamie. And also, we've got Phil, who is the president stroke owner of South Florida Web Advisors. And you've been building websites since 1997, specializing in WordPress and managing and maintaining over 400 websites, which some of those are your direct clients and some of those are your agency clients. So you like mental pain, I guess. That's one of your things. Is that am I-
Well, no, I mean it's the tools of WordPress that are out there, the management tools and so
Yep.
forth. It's allowed me to scale the business. I'm a one-person business managing that many sites. Now, most of them are brochure sites that, other than plugin updates, I'm never having to do any other sort of updates. But WordPress has allowed me to scale my business that way.
It's great, yeah. And we met at Nathan's event, didn't we? The Page Builder
Yes.
Summit.
Yes.
And as I understand it as well, you're a GoDaddy Pro brand ambassador. Is that what they're called?
Yeah, the name is a bit fluid, but yes, I'm a GoDaddy Pro. I know the platform. I support. I do a lot on their community channel, and I'm very involved with the GoDaddy environment. But I'm not exclusively GoDaddy by any means.
No, of course not. No, but I use Managed WP. I don't use I was already on Managed WP, so I never turned into the GoDaddy branded version of that. But it's like you said, you're looking after 400 websites. I look after about 70, and the tools that you need to do it are amazing. So yeah, that's fantastic. Well, it's great to have you on, Philip.
Thank you.
And Nathan, I don't know if there's anything you want to say before we any questions you want to ask at all.
Yeah, because this platform's slightly new. There's several places you could be watching this. Oh, that's quite nice. They look good. The comments look different. That's one thing. But if you do want to comment, you're either going to be at wpbuilds.com/live, in which case you're logged into Google. That's YouTube. Or you could be in our Facebook group, wpbuilds.com/Facebook. But my understanding is that Restream need you to sort of give your permission. If you don't want to be anonymous and you want your icon to go along with your comment, you have to go to chat.restream.io/FB and click a button which says, I give permission. So yes, basically do that. The other things to mention are probably not that important, but if you do have anything to say, go for it, stick it in the comments, and we'll see how this platform copes with that, whether they pop up easily for me to sort of put in. Looks like a couple of people have done that. So as an example, this person obviously didn't know to do that. Hello. Got my usual seat in the comments. I don't know who that was. No idea. But if you want to go and click that link, that would be helpful. Oh, Poodle Press is based in my hometown. Lovely. Another one.
That's got to be Chris Hughes because he's talking about webs. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So Chris, click the button or go to that link that I mentioned just a moment ago. And there's Cameron yet again. It's probably like 4 a.m. in Australia. So thank you, Cameron, for staying up and sticking with us. I really appreciate that. Right. Okay. Let's see if I can make that screen work. Did that go on? Yay! Look, new view. People on the right instead of on the left. That is quite nice. So we are WP Builds, blah, blah, blah. Do it every week. It's the same thing. Nothing's changed. So I won't dwell on that too long. I'm going to hand it straight over to Paul. I'm in a bit of a rush today because I know Jamie's got to be off in about 30 minutes. So let's just get stuck right into it.
Okay, so the first one is on the juiced.blog. I don't know if I've said, have I pronounced that right? Juiced, or is it
Yoast?
Yoast. Oh, okay. So Yoast is the pronunciation. So
yep.
Yoast.blog, but it's not, the website isn't pronounced like Yoast the plugin. It's the correct spelling of Yoast's name. So it's JOOST.blog. And it is the founder of the Yoast plugin, who does every 6 months a kind of CMS market share analysis. And so he's done another one. I guess it's been 6 months. And as usual, it is showing that WordPress is growing hugely. And based on this, let's just see what the share is at the moment. Based on the stats at this point, it's showing WordPress as 41.7% of the market. Some of the other highlights of it are that Shopify has now overtaken Joomla as the number 2 spot.
Wow.
And has a 3.6 market share, which sounds pitiful, but it's a huge amount of websites. It's just that WordPress has got so many. So Joomla seems to be losing market share. Squarespace, which was relatively stable 6 months ago, is growing again, now at 1.7%, and has overtaken Wix. And Wix also grew and is also at 1.7%, the same as Squarespace, but I guess Squarespace has just got slightly more, a few 100,000 more installs or something like that. Drupal's on the down, and something that I've never even heard of called Bittrex. And so Bittrex, Blogger, and Magento are all relatively stable, but on a very small amount there. So as usual, WordPress is growing, so that's great. So I'm wondering out to the panel today, why is WordPress growing, and what do you think about the growth that it's achieving, and what in your opinions is this growth down to?
Well, a few things. One is pandemic, and if you look at WooCommerce's growth, which I also saw released the other day, that's still grown incredibly quickly. So the pandemic definitely, and we saw this in our plugin sales last year, there was a big growth in WooCommerce sites because of the change of people's behavior. So definitely from the e-commerce side, WordPress through WooCommerce would have had a big sort of shift in momentum as well, which would have continued its growth. As opposed to that, I'm not sure what else would be growing at apart from its continued, dominance in the market, really.
Well, WooCommerce is growing faster than Shopify. That's something worth mentioning as well. They expected Shopify to be growing faster than WooCommerce, but based on 6 months ago figures, but now WooCommerce is accelerated and is exceeding Shopify. Sorry, Phil, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it also has to do with features and functionality in some of the other platforms. Like I have a client that I just been recently onboarding that was with Wix, and that they were doing some commerce through Wix, and they needed to do something with coupons, whatever it was, that the Wix platform just couldn't do it, that they ended up moving their shopping cart over to Shopify, and they said, if I'm moving that, why do I still need to use Wix? And they said, I'd rather have a platform that has more flexibility and can grow with me as I have needs. And so we moved them over to WordPress for their marketing site, and in time we'll probably move them from Shopify into WooCommerce so everything's in one place. But I think that has a significant thing to do with it as well, is that, while it's great that everything is all built by one company, if they don't allow for some flexibility in features and functionality, then people aren't going to stay with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the I'll just quickly put this slide back up. I don't know how typical this is in any industry. Because what have we got there? I know it's over 30%, but 42% roughly. I just don't know if that's normal, because if I think about things like social networks, it feels to me like Facebook's probably on par with that, maybe more. And if I was thinking about search engines or something, I'm imagining Google would be like the dark grey and the blue combined. It just seems like certainly in the technology space, not on the high street where there's just, there's like 4 mobile phone shops, but in tech, it feels like some things just rise to the top and dominate. And I don't know why that is.
Yeah, they rise to the top, but they can be agitated, and sometimes, big chunks can be knocked off things. At the moment, like you said about the social media stuff, and Apple battling with the privacy stuff with Facebook, that's going to cause some major shifts, I think, in percentages. And
that's a good point. Yeah,
you've got browser wars as well. Chrome is probably the leader, and then operating system wars, depending on different places. But
I think WordPress as well as, if you look at some of the more successful theme companies out there, like Astra, what Astra's doing, and plugins like Elementor, the functionalities come on. It's hard to remember. The functionalities come on heaps and bounds in the last year. In terms of being able to build sites almost with one click, which is very appealing to the markets like Wix and Squarespace. That's kind of the markets that those guys are. So those markets, the Wix markets and the Squarespace markets, are being attacked from all sides, really. Plus, you've got, and I'm not sure this is true, but you've got Gutenberg playing into that as well, and that's only going to grow the WordPress market share because the technology is getting easier. It's getting easier and easier to roll for non-technical people to roll out sites. So that's going to play into it as well, I guess.
Do you know what? Just a comment here from Cameron Jones. He says those none and other CMS platforms look quite popular. What would be really smart is to go out and like register the domain other or none.com and launch yourself as a CMS and instantly take like 30%. 30% share right away. Yeah, it's fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. And these numbers are just gargantuan now. I feel so well armed when I talk to clients, which I do increasingly infrequently. But that kind of authority, that kind of look, we are 42% of the website, even if we end up hating each other's guts, you can just go somewhere else and there'll be somebody who is really capable of taking your website over from me because, well, more, 42% of the people building websites are doing it with this platform. It's fabulous. I feel so fortunate. A couple of other comments quickly here. That other 9.5% is interesting. So that's the sort of bit of all the other bits together. I wonder if it's decreasing rapidly and converting. Yeah, I'm imagining that every time WP goes up, those little colourful slices there on the page just sort of shrink slightly and WP inherits them.
I think as well, I've seen over the last, I mean, this has been happening for a while, but I've definitely seen more enterprise type companies shifting across to WordPress in the last year that normally had in-house developers potentially that were a bit sniffy about it, and those are sort of starting to being, the objections are being answered, but two, some of those teams aren't there anymore. So in-house marketing teams are taking over directly the marketing and looking at WordPress as a solution. So I've seen some of that stuff happening in the last year as well.
Yeah. Whoever this is, thank you. I am so sarcastic. I love it when people are sarcastic right back at me. Quote of the day from Nathan, which I do increasingly infrequently. Yeah. Okay. Foot in mouth. Thank you very much. Whoever that was, go and click on the Facebook link and we'll find out who you are. Should we move on to the next one? Because I want to get a couple in before Jamie has to go. So this is all about Elementor, and it's you again, Paul, isn't it? So let me pop that one up on the page.
Elementor celebrates 5 years since it started. I think it was actually a fork of another system actually at the beginning, Elementor, but 5 years since Elementor started its journey. And this is quite interesting because this sticks onto the statistics thing. They're aware of over 8 million websites active with Elementor, and now Elementor accounts for over 5% of the entire web, which is bigger than the number 2 CMS. So Elementor alone as a plugin beats Shopify for market share, which is insane. And as well as celebrating, what Elementor has achieved, I'm not an Elementor user. I'm a Beaver Builder user. I actually work for Beaver Builder part time. But you can't deny what they've achieved is pretty impressive, and what they've they've obviously got some problems as well with things like performance. They sometimes get kind of criticized for that kind of thing. But as for kind of creating a platform that has empowered agencies, freelancers, and site owners to go and create complicated sites, some of them great, some of them a complete mess, they've created a tool that people seem to go to. I don't know what their current growth angle looks like, but every time I've checked on the used by website, I forgot the website's called now. Built with, it's still growing and growing sharply. So, but I've got a slightly controversial opinion to throw in and just see what people think about it. So, Elementor accounts for over 5% of the web, over 12, almost 13% of entire WordPress installs. Now, if you take Elementor out of the picture, is WordPress still growing, or is Elementor growing WordPress for WordPress? I think the answer is that Elementor and WooCommerce combined are growing WordPress, but if you take them two out, is WordPress actually a bit stagnant if you take those two killer apps as such out of the picture? So I don't know. I just wanted to throw that one out there, that if Elementor went and did its thing that everybody thinks it's going to do, which is go and potentially fork WordPress one day and go out on its own, does Matt Mullenweg have to start going back down to the 30%ers every time he does a presentation?
Oh, imagine if something began with a 3 at some point in the future, how difficult that would be.
Yeah, we've shrunk. We've shrunk.
That's right. Yeah, I was saying the other day, I think it was maybe on last week's episode, that if we wait for 10 years, WordPress will probably account for 140% of the internet. Every website plus 40% will be built.
I think it's going to start going down. I think it's going to go up to around 45-50%. Then I just think something crazy will happen, like this. This thing Spencer Foreman was saying the other day about Wix would buy Elementor and then fork the entire WordPress and launch its own thing and take away a huge chunk of users. Shopify might up their game, and then WordPress would be around the 50% mark, but never hit that 80% and potentially start going down. Because another controversial one to throw in there, because I don't think Gutenberg is a killer app. I don't think that when it comes down to, you take Elementor and WooCommerce out of the picture, that someone might go, oh, I prefer using Gutenberg than Wix. I'm talking about like the mom and pop businesses here, not like developers or anything. So that's just one of my opinions, and it's pretty crazy probably, but it's just what I think at the moment.
Well, Paul, I actually want to jump in on that. I think you bring up a lot of valid points, but what I think a lot of people like about WordPress is the fact that they're not tied into any one host or one company. Whereas, while I realize everything today is software as a service, and, Google or, Microsoft 365, and you're tied, you don't have a lot of flexibility. People still in certain aspects like to have that control, especially when it comes to the marketing of themselves or of their business. It's one thing for back office operations to say, okay, we'll, fit with whatever restraints. But when people want to market themselves, everybody's a little bit different. So I think, you're not going to see people. I think if Elementor, as you were saying, if they went and said, oh, we're just going to be our own thing and you got to do things our way, I actually think it would hurt them, because again, people like having that flexibility.
Yep, could be right. That's it. I think it's very difficult to predict at the moment. Jamie, what do you think?
So I think the Elementor thing is really interesting. I think with we talked a bit before the show about full site editing. I think that's going to be a real challenge for all the page builder companies out there over and above where Gutenberg is now, because that fundamentally, once you start experiencing full site editing, which is the ability to design the whole site using blocks, once you experience that, then you start to think, well, where does a page builder fit into a theme that you can design the header and the footer and everything on the site in blocks? And you kind of come out of that experience with the conclusion that they don't really fit in that ecosystem where everything that you're using in WordPress is a block. So then, you talked about Elementor forking off to become a SaaS or something like that. That makes perfect sense to me. If I was running the strategy in Elementor, I'd be heading in that direction as quickly as possible. Because if you wind forward 2 years and Gutenberg is becoming more and more powerful, and people are building, really cool sites with it now. And you get all the advantages of a unified interface and lower training costs for enterprises, and being able to tap into the WordPress ecosystem and other things that blocks are bringing you, and the fact that loads of investment. If you look at the investment that's going on out there, a lot of it's around buying companies that are building block-based things at the moment, and a lot of the cool innovations happening around Gutenberg. That's my impression of where this. If you wind forward 2 years, and you say Gutenberg's not a killer app, I think it probably is the killer app, and I think that's probably that's where all the innovation is happening. So yeah, that would be my view. That if I was an Elementor at the moment, I would be heading straight off to if they've got 5% of the market already, they're kind of really. They kind of de facto forked it anyway. If you use Elementor to its fullest, you're kind of not really experiencing WordPress in many ways.
Yeah,
you're kind of using a different tool anyway. Or if you're using a Divi, you're not really using WordPress anymore.
No.
They're kind of using a different system in many ways. So they kind of already have forked it.
One of the things that I find quite interesting, sorry, Jamie, I don't know if I interrupted you there, apologies, is that I foresee that in a couple of years' time, not only will we have full site editing in a fully fleshed out way, but third-party developers will have added their own take on top of full site editing. So we'll probably have the capability to have a different way of creating menus and a different way of creating headers and all sorts of different options by different companies. And at the moment, if you're using a proprietary page builder, for want of a better word, they've got to build on top of that platform and that one platform only. And I suppose you're taking a bit of a risk that platform will continue to succeed. And obviously, everybody's thrown their boat in, all of their stuff in with Elementor because it's a rising tide over there. But you just wonder if full site editing became on par, and then all the third party stuff. And there's so much amazing Gutenberg third party stuff at the moment, to the point where I just can't even keep up. Somebody produces something each and every minute, it seems like, that supplements a piece of the functionality. And that, I think, is the problem, is nobody's got time to play with any of it. But also, I think we're at a point where it's still not usable, if you like. The full site editing, if you were to deploy that into the wild, I think at the moment you'd have a bit of a death wish, really. You're just asking for trouble. But give it a year, I'm sure we'll be on safer shores. Yeah,
I mean, I played with the I think it's called T1, which is the
TT1, I think it is.
TT1, which is I recommend anyone going stick it on a test server and go and play with it. And it takes a bit of getting used to, but I just built my own. I built a header, and it's kind of a profound thing, because you're thinking, well, I'm not restricted to this layout at all. You can literally use a columns block, and I can stick my logo over here, and I can have a weird thing over here. So, but there was literally nothing I couldn't build in terms of a traditional header, just using full site editing. So coming from if you've used WordPress for a long time, it's so different in terms of what the restrictions you're being used to. And then you start thinking about what theme's going to be in the future. And you think where themes like Divi fit into this. And they're going to be incredibly lightweight and fast. There's opportunities around that. And then you look at patterns and the opportunities around block patterns and the cool stuff that's going on around that at the moment. I think that blocks are clearly going to be a huge. We're right at the start of blocks of how they're going to disrupt the ecosystem.
Just have a quick look at some of these numbers, though, because if you were in the Elementor crew right near the beginning, the likes of Ben Pines and so on, you've got to be proud of yourself. These numbers are just breathtaking. So 5% of all websites. I mean, who can even claim anything like that? 8 million websites apparently are active currently. Have I got the zeros right there? Yeah, 8 million websites.
Yeah.
I mean, just look at this. They claim that a new Elementor website is created every 3 seconds. So, but in the time it's taken me to do this sentence, what's that, 5 or so new websites launched with Elementor? They got 5,299 5-star reviews. I don't know what the other reviews are looking like, but 54 supported languages, 273 core releases, 1.09 million lines of code, and their communities. Again, which other community inside the WordPress ecosystem can say that they've got like their own meetup network? There are literally meetups. There's one, I think it's like 3 or 4 in the UK, just Elementor meetups. It's a phenomenal achievement. And whether you love it or don't use it or dislike it, you've got to take your hat off to them. They've totally aced it.
Yeah.
Just phenomenal. Yeah.
Beautiful execution.
Yeah. Chris Hughes says 1.1 line of code added, none removed.
That caught my attention as well. That one. It's like they maybe want to reduce some of that bloat or something.
Cameron speaks of Divi meetups. Yeah, sorry, Cameron, that isn't. I'm not suggesting they don't exist. I've not heard of them. That's all. Yeah. So if there are other meetups, then I think that's impressive too. This kind of goes, the next piece is a Justin Tadlock piece on WP Tavern. It's entitled WordPress Theme Lock-ins and Silos and the Block System. So of all the positive stuff that we've just been talking about and how great it is that blocks are coming along, Justin Tadlock, who everybody knows I really admire. He's got a slightly different take on it this time around, and he's talking about the fact that over the last decade or more, there has been this entirely frustrating experience. If you've gained functionality as a part of your theme, let's say he makes the use of portfolios. You download a theme from wherever it may be, and you start to use their portfolio functionality, and then you decide you just want to flip over to another theme because you're fed up of the way your website looks, and you realize, oh, the theme did that. Oh, rats, and all of that stuff has gone. So he's worried that in the past, obviously, theme vendors have been able to lock you into their ecosystem. And he goes on to talk about how this may be something that is just beginning with blocks as well. So essentially, he's just putting a flag in the sand and saying, we need to be mindful of this. We need to be concerned about this. And on the screen right now are two photographs, one where he set something up with a block, and used one theme, and then he went over to a different theme, and you can see the difference is striking. Something completely worked on one theme, and then it broke on another. So what his conclusion basically is the ship has sailed for this. This stuff is from WordPress 5.0. This is what we got. It might happen that we can have vendor lock-in again. But he's saying if that's the case, let's just make sure that those people who are building themes are really taking care of their people. And, if you've got a theme company, you've got 15 themes, make sure at least your own offering is interoperable so that if you switch from one of your themes to another one of your themes, it just works as you'd expect it, and not have this mess of things working one time over here and not over here. And he's saying that, reputations can be forged in this way, and we're just at the beginning of that. So I don't know if any of you guys have ever experienced the frustration of something totally disappearing, but imagine if it happens in blocks, that would be annoying.
Well, yeah, I use WP Bakery as my main builder across a number of themes, and there are some elements that are theme specific. Now, if I really wanted to get into it, I could start copying, because you could move the elements between themes for how those work. But to this exact point, but I actually want to look at it a slightly different way, is that somebody said to me recently, said, well, wait, does it really matter what theme I'm using? And I said, no, because for most part, the themes are just Visual Compose or Page Builder, whichever one you're using. It's just a predefined layout for that page. It's, it's some style sheet things, but for the most part, for at least the sites that I was building, it's just, okay, which of the widgets for that page builder are we using? The theme almost didn't really matter, because if I switch themes, as long as the widget's there, I get the same result. So I very much respect that opinion of, being locked in. And I think, we see that a little bit with Divi, I think, where, you get locked in and you can't change to anything else. You got to rebuild everything if you're going to switch themes.
Anybody?
Yeah. I think the article is bemoaning to a certain extent the fact that we didn't necessarily have to have this lock-in situation.
Right.
But like you said, the ship has sailed, and in one sense, it's kind of like almost everything will probably end up with lock-in, even if they'd planned it in a much more meticulous way that tried to make the framework less prone to lock-in. But I think what it will mean is that you'll probably, like you said, Nathan, have to choose your vendor to a certain extent, and you'd probably be able to happily skip around the different themes from a particular vendor. So like in the old days of StudioPress, for instance, where you could switch between the different themes and everything would work, or your Genesis functions would work because they were all hooking into the same places and stuff. And I think that the block version of that in the future with full site editing won't be quite as code based in that sense, but I think that your careful theme shop will think about that in advance and make sure, and it'll be almost an opportunity to say, hey, come with our thing, buy our membership, you get access to the 20 different themes that we've got. Right. You can hop between them at any point, and most of the time it works. But to be honest, I think the biggest theme shop that we're going to see is WordPress.com. I think they're building the tool to a certain extent. They've got lots of people placed in on the project. They can make a completely closed environment buy some of the plugins that they want to be part of that environment, make sure that the entire ecosystem for someone who opts into WordPress.com always works. And WordPress.com was always like this, you can't really do what you need to do with it. But if you bring full site editing into WordPress.com, and they've made it a kind of safe environment where you are less likely to destroy your sites, like you could if they gave you access to the PHP code on WordPress.com, then they've got a pretty amazing product that really does, beat Wix and Squarespace and all those kind of things. So that's where I think that a lot of WordPress growth in the future will be on WordPress.com, because the brand name of WordPress is with them. People always say, well, if you want to be able to do anything you want, you need to go with WordPress. Then that person will start looking at WordPress, and then they'll find a WordPress.com theme shop that didn't before, but is now able to say, you can do almost everything now. You've got WooCommerce integrated, you've got this, you can add on these other things. So I think that there'll be tons of growth with WordPress.com. And I think the theme shops that succeed will probably have to follow a method similar to however WordPress.com roll this out, but maybe without the website as a service type aspect to it, but more like a Studio Press model. Again, making it all up. It's just what I think at the moment. And
it was interesting, Paul. I was on a chat with, as you know, with Brian Gardner this week, and he was making the point that that it was really hard for them, for Genesis Studio Press, to make everything compatible. It was a lot of work, he was saying, just to make sure that if it worked with one Studio Press theme, it worked with all of them. And so he's got this new product which is coming out fairly soon. It's a block template offering, and he's really thankful that hopefully, if people choose sort of fairly design agnostic themes, this problem won't come about too much. Jamie, I know time's tight, so if you've got anything to add on that, might be. I
was just reading the article actually and trying to work out actually what he was getting at. So I think he was talking about using standard blocks, but when switching between themes, the standard, like if you used a paragraph block, then you switch theme from the background would change, which was
right.
Which is I was talking about plugin lock-in. I guess more generally, I mean, one of the great things about WordPress is this freedom to move between. There's a real friction and an interesting friction in WordPress. That there's this one of the best things about it is the thing that most users don't know. It's the best thing about it. You've got this freedom to switch between themes and plugins, and the data belongs to you, and you own the terms and conditions of your site if you're self-hosted. But if you look at actually where all the growth is or has been, you've got things like Divi and you've got Elementor, and you've got tools that constantly push people into these silos. This is a more generic point than the blocks. So a lot of the growth is around companies that are actually sort of, not giving users this freedom. Like Divi, you're locked into Divi, and the Facebook groups are very closed. So there's this fantastic friction in WordPress that you've got this beautiful ability to switch. And it's a really powerful thing about WordPress, but a lot of the companies that are succeeding in it aren't actually utilizing that freedom or giving people that freedom. Some are for sure, but some of the more successful ones aren't. And I see that a lot with customers who don't really care about the fact that you have the freedom to move your content away from their site. They just want to use a plugin that they can build a site quickly with. But I think it's something worth battling for if you understand why having the freedom to move your stuff or having control over your stuff is really important. And the same with things like separation from content from design is a really cool concept in WordPress that most users don't really understand, that your content, having that separate from your design is a really cool thing. So if you want to have a rebrand in 6 months' time, you can do that without having to recreate it all. But a lot of users just want to use a plugin that they can build a site quickly with.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
And that's fair enough. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but we shouldn't lose that ability. And I think that's kind of what Justin was getting at, that the blocks give us this, but the way it's been designed, it's not working terribly well. Yeah,
there is the chance that you'll get that frustration where you switch over to a different theme and all of it doesn't look the same. But that's a really good point. I think we as WordPress people stress a great deal about the ability to move from this, that, and the other thing. Whereas I think you're right. Look at the rise of things like Elementor. People just want something that works.
Yeah.
And if this works and I get the UI, that's all I care about. Yeah. Good point.
Yeah. There's more and especially I see this in enterprises and small businesses actually, where there's the more strategic stuff they don't really need to know about, but it's incredibly important. So they'll have enormous technical overhead in their businesses that they're building into it because of the technology choices they're making. But you say to them, well, 6 months down the line, how are you going to train somebody internally to use this tool, this bespoke tool or this proprietary page builder that you're using? And it's like, well, I haven't really thought about that. Which is one of the big things that plays into a lot of the sort of block-based conversations I'm having with people at the moment. Actually,
I'm wondering if Cameron is using heavy sarcasm over here. It's almost as if the block editor was rushed out without addressing significant technical concerns. So
like it's the first time Cameron's thought that. Yeah.
Almost. Well, it could be, maybe. Jamie, I know that the time that you said you needed to go has now arrived.
Yeah.
If you need to hop out, that's fine. Very nice to have you. We will carry on. But
see you again.
See
you again. Come back, please.
Yeah. Cheers. Bye.
Right, let me just see if I can cope with that one. There we go. So now we're on a little the three of us. So it's Phil, Paul, and Nathan all the way from now. I think Jamie's audio was I think he was maybe had a microphone attached to his laptop there. So hopefully it'll be a little bit quieter from now on. Have we done that one? We should move on.
There was one of I'm trying to remember what it was now. Yeah, it's gone. It's gone. So yeah, let's move on.
Yeah. Okay. In which case, we're going to talk about plugins for the next few minutes. We've got 4 things to mention, including a brand new plugin. I confess I don't know almost anything about this, so and I'm struggling to get the screen to share as easily as I did on StreamYard, but that seems to have worked. So what's this about, Paul? It's called Orderable.
This is Adam Preiser's new plugin, actually. So Adam, obviously the well-known YouTuber, has a bunch of plugins now. I think the first major one commercial one that he did was Cart Flows, where he partnered with Brainstorm Force. And then the next one that's been really successful, and I use it all the time actually, is Presto Player, which is a video, like a video player plugin for your websites, and that integrates with a CDN or can kind of rebrand the way that YouTube looks and stuff like that. Gives you all sorts of good options. With that, he partnered with Andre Gagnon from Project Huddle, so another really well-known developer. And this time, he spotted a gap in the market where, with the whole COVID and pandemic thing, small businesses needed to be able to have a kind of local ordering solution. So, for instance, pizza that gets delivered to your house and you can order it online and choose a slot when that's going to happen, that kind of thing. And what happened during the pandemic was there was a lot of SaaS-based apps that came out that would that were able to launch very quickly and enable these businesses to do this, to deliver stuff. But one of the problems of a lot of these SaaS apps is that they charge a lot of money, sometimes up to 40% of the sale price of whatever's being delivered. So let's say you're selling pizza normally and someone comes into your shop and buys a pizza and you sell it for $10. Now you not only have to get the pizza to the person, but you're only making $6, for instance. So that's just a random example. So seeing as, it seems that this whole idea now of local delivery is here to stay, pandemic or not, Adam this time partnered with a company called Iconic, who are the company that just got, I don't know if he partnered with the company Iconic, but he partnered with the founder of Iconic, who's
James Kemp.
James Kemp, yeah. Mm-hmm. So this is some kind of collaboration between Adam and James. And James Kemp's company, Iconic, was just sold to Liquid Web, and it's a suite of around 15 to 20 different very powerful WooCommerce plugins. So there's a lot of experience there in that team that's gone into this plugin. And it's on a kind of pre-sale at the moment. It seems to be a good solution for agencies and also for small businesses. So there seems to be a bunch of different pricing options there. And I think there's still 21 days left on the pre-order, but go and check it out. There's a video on the site where you can sort of see a complete video tour of how it all works.
So is it literally like your pizza venue that just suddenly wants to go SaaS, but they don't want to pay through the nose, and they just want to be able to take phone calls or take stuff on the web and have it just all managed on their website, whatever that ordering is?
Yep, it's kind of like that, but it also gives some good power to the end user. So let's say you're a local butcher. So I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, there was a lot of local butchers selling big packs of sausages and burgers. I don't know if that was around by you as well, Nathan and Phil, but around here, the local butchers were kind of doing meat packs and stuff like that. And what this plugin allows you to do that a lot of the apps probably don't is, number one, get rid of the fees associated with running the business like that. But also it includes some kind of simple funnel type stuff. So you've got things like one-click upsells. So for example, the person is at the checkout, they've just bought their packet of sausages, and then they got offered a half-price pack of bacon, for instance. That's just one example use case. Or for instance, if they're ordering pizza, then there's a discount on the dessert that comes along. And it gives them the full power of WordPress to do everything. And then it uses the WooCommerce checkout for them to be able to pay. But from what I understand, the WooCommerce integration, I haven't really tried it, but I was looking through the page trying to see where is WooCommerce in this. And it seems to be very minimal mentioned part of the plugin. So it seems to me that it's really just using WooCommerce as the checkout.
Right.
And the plugin is, from what I understand, pretty self-contained. So you go in there and you do it all within the interface. So kind of quite friendly to the end user, I think. So I've seen agencies buying this and end users buying this, but yeah. Phil, I don't know if you have many clients that were hit by the pandemic and needed to switch to this kind of local situation.
No, but I do. I actually have a couple of pizza places that, as you said, they charge a significant. They charge 25% plus on some of these orders for doing these deliveries and whatnot. And this could be a benefit to some of these. I live in a very high retiree community area, so people, that with the pandemic and everything, they didn't want to go out. So this could be very beneficial to a lot of people. I think it also goes to, though, how the workflow is internal to the businesses, because the one thing that I will say that those other providers give, even with their percentage, is they give a workflow management that it's just here, it just adds into your system, it bumps the tickets in the kitchen and all that. It would be interesting to see how this integrates to all that. If it does, if it's completely standalone, because I think that's the big piece that isn't always thought about, is the back of house operations.
So on the website, they mention that they do order layouts, product add-ons, order bumps, one-page ordering, time slots, order flow, holiday scheduling, floating cart widget, and then order management. And then in the roadmap, if you like, coming soon, it says custom checkout. So that's interesting. So is that what you were meaning, Paul? Maybe it just takes the WooCommerce out of the picture. Checkout tipping, SMS and WhatsApp. Ooh, that's intriguing. And then timed products, so you can make things expire after a certain date and so on. So it's really interesting. That we were talking about silos earlier, about plugin silos and what have you. Any concern for you, Paul, that if you got into this and all of your orders were going through here, and then you suddenly sort of fell out of love with it, you might be stuck because everything's stuck in there?
Yeah, you would be, but I think you would be with any situation. I mean, to be honest about this silo thing, I'm not really concerned about it, because, like Jamie said, it's always been a thing anyway. You sort of, the growth in WordPress has been you sort of choose your stack, and then you're sort of stuck with it, really. And then the only way you can work your way out of that is say, okay, I'm changing my stack. The next website I build will be with this new stack, and I'll go with that.
And then you just keep doing that over.
And then you end up with like managing 15 different stacks on care plans and stuff.
That's right.
But yeah, I mean, back to that whole lock-in thing, just briefly. When we've had Anne McCarthy on the show, and I don't remember if we've ever spoken this on air as such, or this was possibly an off-air conversation. But I remember her talking to us about why the full site editing is not just important to people for what it does, but also for the future of WordPress as an open source software, so that no matter how many companies, let's say GoDaddy, who Phil has association with, or Liquid Web, or any of these companies that are sort of building these sort of pre-made platforms, like Chris Hughes earlier said about that GoDaddy has got a very powerful WooCommerce platform that it can push out, and that is probably behind a lot of people choosing that over Shopify, because it's a done for you combination of things. But Anne McCarthy was saying to us, well, that's great that that's all happening, but we at on the core projects at WordPress.org want to make sure that there is always a choice to opt out of these pre-made packages or whatever. You can always just download the thing, download the plugins that you want, and that, in a world where everybody is trying to build their stack and sell it to us via the hosting companies, there's always a choice. So with something like this, I don't think it's the same sort of lock-in. I think this is such a niche product. It's a case of that. This reminds me of what Dave Foy said to us once, was that when he was running his Elementor course, a large percentage of his customers were like, what's WordPress? And they thought WordPress was the plugin, this weird, annoying thing that you have to have in order to run Elementor. So they came in and they came in through Elementor's marketing and were like, why do I have to press update on this WordPress thing in the background? What's that for? And I think that a solution like this is kind of like, it partly gets marketed as a WordPress solution, but it really can be marketed as its own solution that doesn't really care whether WordPress is involved or not. It's just that you need WordPress to have it. It's because it's so niche. And there's other products like that as well, when they're niche. I think that's a wonderful thing about WordPress is that it does, allow you to just create these products on top of that framework and do that. Yeah.
You've got to love the URL as well, orderable.com. You've got to think that. I'm so surprised that didn't go like in 2001 or something.
Well, it did. It did some history on this.
Oh.
I think this is the one anyway. A while ago, Adam on his YouTube channel released a video saying, I'm releasing something and I've just spent $20,000 on a domain name.
Oh, okay.
So he did a video about it, about kind of why when there is something that is so perfect for your situation and it's going to work, taking that risk is worth it. 25K. Yeah, I know Chris told me that he was talking to Adam about this actually. And so Chris probably knows a bit more background about it. But then eventually when this product was announced, it was announced alongside, this was the domain that I bought, this orderable.com. We needed that name and we went for that. So
nice. Worth it.
And I can't afford to buy a 23 grand domain, no matter how successful any of my ideas are. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
I can get orderable.info or something like that, maybe.
Yeah, orderable.fish, which is my favorite domain name idea.
One,
just anything. Who's ever going to buy .fish anything? Maybe like, I don't know, fishmonger.fish or something, but this is the weirdest one. Okay, so let's keep it going. I don't know who this person is, but thank you for contributing. Yes, apparently that was the project that Adam was talking about. So
yeah, I think so.
Nice. Yeah. So orderable.com if you want to check that out. Right, let me try and get things back on the screen. I'm struggling somewhat with the new way of doing things because it keeps putting things in. Oh no, that's worked first time. Hurrah! So if you are an Astra user, you may be pleased to know that the theme has been updated. Very quickly, just run through a few things. We're on number 3.5 is their number at the moment, and they talk about the fact that they've got increased speed, faster loading front end with optimized CSS. I won't go into the boring nature of all of this, but basically they will conditionally load CSS across your website, but also conditionally load it up on the page that you're the page builder that you are using. So I'm guessing that if you're on Beaver Builder, they'll just chuck out all the stuff that might have anything to do with Elementor. Although for all of that fanfare, it didn't seem to me that the difference is all that magnificent. Maybe I'm just being a bit picky, but the CSS file went down from 18.5K down to 16.4, which, well, I suppose as a percentage, that's a pretty big decrease, but you've shaved just over 2 kilobytes off the CSS. So anyway, there we go. They've also released some fairly nice controls for posts, related posts. So for example, if you're looking at the screen here, you can rename the related post control, so you can give it a title. You can then also, depending on the device that you're looking at, you can say, I want to show 1 column of related posts or 1 column on desktop and 2 on mobile. Why you would do it that way, only God knows. But there you go. And also they have got responsive visibility, so you can also toggle off things like the site title and the site tagline and things. And then pretty much everybody's talking about accessibility at the moment, and they have made some modifications to the sort of the way the colors contrast. They're going to make it so that they suggest colors which have a high contrast ratio, as opposed to if you pick something which is difficult to read, which is my default. I always pick the difficult to read font colors just because I've got no idea about design. And but it's nice little update. I'm not really using Astra anymore, but it seems like there's a whole bunch of nice stuff that's come out recently. You can build headers and footers in their UI and stuff like that. So nice little improvements.
Yeah, that related posts title tech editor.
Yeah, you can actually edit the text.
I mean, it's so
the title.
those are the sort of things where you kind of like, I want to use this related post, but your average user won't know.
Yeah.
Literally, it's just going to say related post. I can't make it say anything else. How do I do this? I was building a site in Cadence just the other day because I wanted to give it a go and see. Because normally I'm typically a GeneratePress user, and they had that feature actually because I had some related posts. Now I was so relieved to see I could change the text because mine needed to say related videos,
right?
And post was going to be completely out of context. And my options, if that option wasn't there, was going to be to try and find the PHP filter or something to change it or do something like that. And I didn't want to. I just wanted it to be there. So it seems that Astra is still active. I don't know. It seems to have lost its momentum. It was the fastest growing theme for a long, long time. It probably is the winner of the most active installs for a premium theme, I think. Then they had that thing where they got chucked off the repo for a couple of weeks or so.
Yeah, I forgot that.
But it seems they're still listening and looking what the competition is doing. And someone just said, wasn't Astra acquired? I don't think so.
No, I don't think
Cadence was, but Astra, so far as I know, is still a brainstorm.
On the post, it's written, the post right at the very top, it says it's written by Sujay, who is I'm going to say CEO of Brainstorm Force. I don't know if that's actually true, whether he's the CEO or not, but he, as far as I know, they've not been bought out. So no, I think it's still under the same management. I've heard nothing, and I am an owner of that product, and so I would have hoped to have heard. So I think you can rest assured that's fine. Yeah.
Philip,
I got a quick trick for you that I've used on a number of sites where I needed to rename some sort of string, and I didn't want to have to go into the PHP and have to worry about it breaking. Is a plugin called Loco Translate, and that I'm just translating the English translation file, the main translation. And that I changed the string there, and then it gives me the ability to do that. So I've done that with both plugins and theme elements, and it's worked really well. And I can't take ownership of that trick because it was actually provided to me by a plugin author. When I said, "Oh well, how can I change this?" They're like, "Oh, go use this, and you can change it." So
you translate in English to English, basically. That's cool. Yeah. And what's that plugin called again? Because that was a super tip.
Loco Translate.
Nice.
Loco Translate. All right. Yep. Fantastic.
I remember back in the day when I was building Magento sites, hardwired into Magento was this capability to basically anything that appeared on the screen anywhere in a Magento website, you could just say what the original string was and then next to it write what you wanted it to say, and it just figured it all out. And every time it appeared, it just became exactly what you want. So typically, cart would become, I don't know, bag or something. We don't really use shopping cart here. We use the word trolley often, and things like bin would become trash and so on and so forth. So you could fiddle around with that. And that sounds like just what you've recommended, Phil. So that's cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Okay, moving on very quickly. Let me just get used to this platform again. There we go. Next one is the Page Builder framework. We haven't talked about the Page Builder framework for a little while, but this is nice. They have David von Gries, of course, the owner and developer over there, has added the capability to, well, it says, I'm excited to let you know that we've added full support for generate blocks to our custom section feature. Paul and I have both played a little bit. I think probably fair to say that Paul's played with it more than I have. But generate blocks seems to be like a really, really credible way of building layouts with blocks. And now the Page Builder framework out of the box will support that. They've also They've also created their first block. They're calling it the notice block, and David makes the point that, well, he'd already created all of the notices that were required, so he decided to make a block out of it. And so now you can put things like an error message or a warning message or what have you into your posts and pages. And this bit I think is really nice. On the screen, I'm showing you the quick edit menu for something in the Page Builder framework. And typically, there's just a few little options in there. You know, you can change the post title and you can change the date that it was published and whether it's draft or what have you. But David's put an absolute boatload of stuff in there. So basically, everything that you would be able to control if you opened up the post itself. So whether it's got things like sidebars, whether there's a footer or the header's gone or you want just a left sidebar, all of that is now available in the quick edit menu. And it might be that I'm just being ignorant, but I've not seen that before.
No, that's a cool feature. That is a very useful feature.
Yeah. I've really only just started using Quick Edit because I made a point in the Facebook group, the WP Builds Facebook group, about 6 months ago. I made this sort of slightly snarky comment. Nobody uses Quick Edit. What's the point of it? And then like a torrent of like, you're an idiot. Everybody uses it.
You've been wasting so much time.
Yeah. And so I've started using it and I've quickly found the utility of it. Because honestly, I just figured by the time I've clicked that and it's just gone down, I might as well just go in. Anyway, and now all of that's in there. My theme of choice, I'm hoping that they follow suit because that's just really, really cool. You suddenly know oh, bugger, it's got a sidebar and you just want to get rid of it. There you go. So bravo, David. Personally, I think that's such a cool feature. And then there's a bunch of other things, little sides, if you like. There's an option to rename WooCommerce cart menu item text, option to disable WooCommerce gallery lightbox, WooCommerce menu item shortcode, and improvements to the Gutenberg integration. He doesn't mention what they were. But some phenomenally cool little updates there. Nice work, David. Paul, Phil, anything on that?
I think the generate block support is a really nice one because, first of all, it's, David is absolutely happy to announce that he's integrating with a product that is owned by one of his major competitors, GeneratePress. And I think that's actually just how Tom at GeneratePress and David from Page Builder Framework are. They're just not... They're kind of let's work together rather than work against each other kind of people. And so I think that's a super good update because what it's done, I think it means that generate blocks can now be used in their custom sections thing, which is kind of like hooks, I think. So let's say you want to build your own footer out of blocks. It means that it's quite difficult to build a footer out of blocks without something like generate blocks, and specifically without generate blocks. It seems to be the best solution specifically for that because of the way its grid module is so far ahead of anything else I've used anyway. So it's brilliant. It means you can use generate blocks with the Page Builder framework and it's going to work. So a lot of fans of his theme are going to be pretty happy about this. The problem David's got, I guess, is that his theme almost does everything that it needs to do now. Mm-hmm. So I guess like probably the sort of things we'll see from him in his updates will be making it work better with the cadence blocks or making it work better with the stackable blocks or something like that. And him being able to say, my product is what it is. It's not trying to be cadence. It's not trying to be Astra. It's not trying to be Block C, none of these kind of things. It's not even trying to be GeneratePress. It's different. But what I'm going to do is make sure it works really well with all the third-party things that almost everyone who is my customers tends to be using. So that's what I think he's going to do. I haven't spoken to him about it, but it looks to me like that is the case, and that would be a good news for any user of his product, I think. Phil, what's your go-to theme these days, if you were choosing it rather than inheriting the site as such?
Yeah, the main theme that I use is one that I found through Theme Forest. It's called Lambda by Oxygena. I've been using it for a number of years now, and it uses WP Bakery as the main page builder within it. The biggest thing that I like about it is that they have a skins functionality, which is in essence the style sheet that, rather than having to go in and use one of the third-party integrations to control the style sheet elements, they in essence do a custom post type, and it doesn't add as much overhead to the site load, I find, and that they just from that custom post type build a CSS file from that. And I've been using it for a number of years. I actually got concerned because they finally just released an update about 2 weeks ago, but before that, it was like December of last year. And that's one thing that we're talking about updates that that I always get concerned about, and when I talk with clients about picking a theme, is trying to find one that is actively being updated, because WordPress is adding so much, and if they're not updating the themes to take advantage of the new features in WordPress, even if you're not using all of them, it's like, well, at some point, is this theme going to break? Am I going to push upgrade on WordPress and all my sites are now going to break because that theme hasn't been updated to keep up with it? So that's my big concern of any of these themes, that if they're not being actively developed.
Yeah, it's a really good point. We all want to be able to sleep easy at night, and seeing the change log. So people like David putting that stuff out is just great. You just see it and you see that there's new features, and he's taking care of some bugs and what have you, because that was the last point on the list, I think, was he just says and more, which I presume might be bug fixes. Just gives you a bit of reassurance that it's not going away. It's nice. The next one is on Paul, but I've got to say, just before we begin this one, it's about iTheme security, and it kind of feels to me like 3 or 4 years ago I was really making use of iTheme security, and then all these other rival things came along, like WebArcs and Malcare and all of those, and they really took me off. And I stopped basically using iThemes for no reason other than that these nice shiny tools which did things, and it looked more interesting. I stopped using those, but now iThemes, according to this new article that we're going to put out, it looks like they've done a real big overhaul. Over to you, Paul.
Yeah, I am a fan of iThemes security, and I didn't stop using it. One of the things about WordPress security for me is I don't really understand what's actually going on. But what I do know is that I want to have something that hardens WordPress, something that is a firewall, and then something that is scanning properly. So my stack these days tends to be iTheme security mixed up with Malcare. So I know that Malcare has got a firewall. It's taking care of scans really well, and it's also doing all the backups. It's doing at least one level of the backups for me, and I use it all the time. And I was also combining it for a while with WebArcs, or PatchStack as it's now known.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But yeah, I actually removed PatchStack from my security stack because it didn't. Nothing. I mean, this sounds so cowboy, but nothing bad happened when I removed it from tons and tons and tons of sites. I just wanted to remove, when someone was getting blocked from something, like a client was getting blocked themselves, I was like, has Malcare blocked them out, or is iThemes, or is PatchStack? And I was just like, I just don't know anymore who's getting blocked by what. So I removed PatchStack. I'm not saying people should remove PatchStack, but I did, and I stuck with iTheme Security Pro. I know it's been sort of criticized in the past. There's been, I saw Dopey Johnny, the guy who's well known for performance improvements and stuff like that, as a real expert in that. He called it a checklist plugin, which it is really, in a way that you have all these different things, and you assume that because you're ticking so many boxes, it must be doing lots of good stuff. Well, the funny thing is, in iTheme Security Pro 7, they've sort of admitted in a way that there was a lot of aspects to it that were just checklist stuff, because one of the major things they've done in this version 7 is remove 15 to 20 different features that they've basically said this feature is just not relevant in 2021. So we're just removing it. Let's just get that out of the situation. We don't need it anymore. So they've removed those kind of things, but then they've added some hardening in other areas that felt more relevant to them now based on what 2021 is. The other thing they've done is completely redone the interface, which was much needed because it's been the same interface for at least 5 years, as far as I can remember.
Yeah.
And the best part that they've done in this is the onboarding. So if you install this as a brand new plugin, the onboarding is fantastic. It's like a questionnaire. You go through, you even sort of say, are you an online shop? Are you a brochure site? These different kind of questions that start you off with the most important if you don't know what's going on. And you're like, I don't know. Don't ask me hard questions, but I'm a brochure site. It'll say, don't worry, we'll take care of it. But then as you go through the onboarding, you can get more granular about the different things that you do want on and the things that you don't want. So it's a really cool update. And what pleases me about this is I've got a lifetime deal with iTheme Security Pro. I've also got a lifetime deal with Restrict Content Pro, which is now owned by the same company. And in my opinion, Restrict Content Pro also needs a massive overhaul, just like they've just done with this. So I'm hoping that my other product that I bought, Restrict Content Pro, gets the same treatment that iTheme Security Pro does, with great onboarding and features that people need now rather than things that were useful 5 years ago. So a really good update, to be honest,
Nice.
in my personal opinion. And I'm glad that there's less things that I don't understand now. So that's good as well.
Yep.
You a user, Phil?
Yeah, I have the same lifetime license on this that I got back in it was version 3.7.
Yeah.
They were running a special at some point, and I had been using this pretty much exclusively up until about 2 years ago when I switched to WordFence and Curry. And the biggest reason actually that I liked WordFence was the fact that it actually did a file system scan for malware, versus iThemes was always just doing it as sort of like the end user, where it would do a front end website scan. And there are times where you get malware that you never see from the front end. Actually, about 4 or 5 months ago, iThemes sent out an email saying, "Oh, we're interested in getting feedback. Are you available for a Zoom session?" And I spoke with the guy, and I actually did a whole screen sharing with him. And it's interesting to see what they've now done in 7.0, because a lot of the things that I'm seeing here were things that I know that I specifically had mentioned to him, where I said, I think that iThemes is very utilitarian, at least in its current format, that you look at that screen of settings, and Paul, to your point, is if you don't know what, some of those things are, it's like you look at it, it's like, what on earth am I supposed to do with this?
Yeah.
On. And then each one of those settings had 5 to 10 settings within it. And I said, I'm a tech guy. I understand a lot of this, but if you want the average end user who's just going to buy this a one-off site, they're going to be completely overwhelmed by this. And in seeing these onboarding screens, I think that is huge. Now, I don't know from some of the underlying features that, have they improved some of those, or is this more of a, make it look a little prettier and easier to use, but they haven't really necessarily changed some of the background things. I think that time will tell as it starts getting rolled out. But Paul, like you said, I think that this is a huge step in the right direction in terms of usability of the product.
Yeah, I mean, it isn't that often that you see a complete overhaul of the UI and a company just stripping out a load of stuff and saying, we've just stripped out a load of stuff. It's way better. I think that's really cool. But also, I wonder if it speaks to the fact that maybe they've done some research and figured out who their audience is. Maybe they've got an audience who they've really nailed as well, they really aren't that technical. We just need them to handhold them through it, one step at a time, explain what's going on. And we're talking about Elementor earlier. Most of those people, I would imagine, who are using, sorry, that's ridiculous, not most, but a lot of people who are using Elementor could certainly be non-technical users, but they might discover that, there's a solution that offers me protection online. I've heard this is something I need. I don't really understand it. I need to be talked through it. But also really cool that you were on the call today, Phil, and you actually had a chat with them and they listened to what you said. So it's a bit like there are some companies that kind of go off my radar and I almost think they're going away, that we won't be hearing from them. And I kind of had that feeling about iThemes a little bit, but everything that's going on at the minute means all of that was wrong. They've acquired Cadence, which is about the hottest property, it seems, at the minute. They've bought a brand new version of iThemes security out. Seems like everything's going well for them at the moment. Nice.
They're updating the free version as well very soon. So the free version will get a similar sort of treatment. But
Yep.
I mean, I don't want to get too much into the business side of things, but just briefly, if you imagine that, they're like GoDaddy has its kind of WooCommerce platform version of things, and GoDaddy has its integration with Securi that is can be potentially invisible if the package does that. So same thing can kind of go for iThemes and their Liquid Web, their parent company,
yeah.
that they can launch this and say, hey, let's set up your site. And you go to the site and you're like, let's choose your theme, and you go through this full onboarding process where you choose your Cadence. Your Cadence is there. It's already there, the pro version. You choose your template. Okay, you're done. Right, let's set up your security. What kind of website are you? You said that when you chose this one, you chose this template, which is an e-commerce template. So let's get you set up for that.
Right.
And I can see this kind of, bum, 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 bum. And then you're good to go with your website. Right, let's do your SEO now. And I don't know if I don't think they've bought an SEO plugin yet, but I wouldn't surprise me. There's a bunch of SEO plugins that would be
yeah.
You got Yoast, and then you got all the rest, which are all buyable. I think they're run by small teams, and potentially people might be. I'm sure a number of those SEO plugins, SEO Press type plugins, will be considering. I'll sell if someone offers me enough money.
Can I ask you a question, Paul? Because you've used Cadence certainly more than I have. Is there anything about this UI which is similar? I mean, obviously the first thing that comes to mind is it's blue, right? I mean, but that's just. Is there some coalescence? Is that a word? Do you think iThemes stuff is coalescing around this one UI, and the sort of iThemes bit will match the Cadence bit, and it'll all just feel like the Liquid Web Stellar WP bit?
Yeah. So I've only used Cadence twice, and from memory, one of the screens that I land on regularly in the back end is the kind of the screen where you can control all the settings within Cadence. And actually, it does look just like this, with a bunch of rectangle blocks in there that take you to things. When you click the majority of them, they're just shortcuts to part of the customizer. So that's basically what you're doing. But it wouldn't surprise me. I didn't think about it, Nathan. But now you've asked that question. I wonder if the team at Cadence and the team at iThemes Security had a little Zoom call where they looked at each other's interfaces and they said, because that's one of the things that they've said about all these acquisitions at Liquid Web, that it means the teams can cross-pollinate ideas.
Right.
And iThemes would say, look, we really need a big update to our user interface. Who's done it well within our family? Cadence have done it pretty well. Well, let's get on a Zoom call with them, and they can tell us what we think we should do. And we'll combine that with talking with some of our end users and agencies like Phil. And then we can roll something out that we feel confident is tried and tested and takes account of what the users asked about and wanted as well. So, yeah, there's definitely some similarities, Nathan. Definitely.
I think the takeaway here is if you've got a plugin which isn't working as you'd hope, just give Phil a call and he'll sort you out on a Zoom call. Just get you straight.
I will say I've seen a number of the plugin authors, at least the bigger ones, ask for feedback, because as much as, seeing the feedback in the, in the WordPress.org, in the support groups and also like in Code Canyon, but getting feedback from actual end users and seeing real world case studies of how it's being used, I think it helps, not only the plugin author know how to do something with it, but us as end users to get a better product in the end.
Yeah, it's very important. Okay, we'll just sort of move on, but that was interesting. This is just something, a bit of a self plug, I suppose, in a way. It's not really a plug. It's me asking if you would like to come and be present when I talk to Mark Westgard later this week. Mark Westgard has a plugin called WS Form, and honestly, go and check out WS Form. If you want a dead simple form solution that will just take a contact form, this might not be it. But if you want to have a form solution which enables you to do really horrifically complicated things in a UI way, this is fabulous. I remember I first came across it a few months ago. David Wormsley put it in a podcast that we did about forms, and I'd never heard of it. And it didn't take me long to figure out that Mark has really done a fantastic job. It is incredibly impressive. The way that you build the forms is a bit like the old toolset layout way of doing it. You've got this grid of 12 and you just drag the form fields on and you make them as big as you want. So you might make the name and the email half, and then you can say on mobile, make it look like this. And so you really can configure it how you want. But then you've got calculations and conditional logic, and it connects to just everything. It's truly impressive. And I'm talking to him Wednesday, exactly this URL. If you're watching this, you can come back to this in 2 days' time. In fact, 2 days and about 40 minutes. And get your questions out there. Ask him what it is that he's done and why he's done it. So I'd really appreciate it if anybody wants to join. Then we'll be doing that this time in 2 days' time. So there we go. Bit of a plug. Next one's a bit of a weird one. Why have we got this one on, Paul? I've never heard of this before in my life.
Zion Builder.
Zion Builder.
Yeah, so this is a page builder or a site builder. I think I've not really fully tried it that much, but I think while we've got the Gutenberg project going, we've got Elementor doing its thing, we've got some of the old guard Divi and Beaver Builder doing their thing, and then there is some new kids on the block, and probably the two that I'm seeing people talk about are Bricks Builder, which is, I don't know if it still has a lifetime deal at the moment, but it launched with a lifetime deal. I think
it does. Yeah.
Yeah. It was about just under $200, I think, or something for the lifetime deal. And then another one that I was just ignoring constantly was this one called Zion Builder, until I do see it being talked about in communities by people who I think know what they're talking about quite a lot. So this is a theme company who did this, who had a theme called, I don't know how you pronounce it, actually. I've never tried to pronounce it. Let me just try and pronounce this. Kalias theme.
That'll do. Yeah, that one. Yeah.
It's a bit like the Lambda one that Phil's talking about. It's one of these kind of, we've got 70 pre-made demos and you can start right away, and it comes built with a page builder built in. But I think that Kalias didn't use Duppy Bakery, it didn't use the Elementor free version. It had its own thing called Zion Builder. And I think what they've done is they've completely rebuilt Zion Builder to be something that replaces the old Zion Builder that was part of the theme and replaces the theme. So I think this is a full site editing type solution similar to Bricks. And the reason we're mentioning it is just because there's a deal on AppSumo for $99.
Yeah.
AppSumo seems to just, has changed a lot over the last year or two. It used to be lots of SaaS tools, but they started this thing called AppSumo Marketplace, I think, which is where almost any company can decide they want to kind of list on there, and AppSumo will take a big chunk of the money and everything. But Zion Builder seems to be getting a lot of people talking about it. I don't know too much about it, but if someone is looking for the new kids on the block and has tried Bricks and wants to try something else and figure out what their thing is going to be for the next few years, then Zion Builder isn't a brand new company. It's been around for a while, they've done themes for a long, long time, and they built a page builder before, and it wasn't bad, and this one is apparently pretty good.
There's Chris Hughes in the comment who said he hasn't bought this lifetime deal, and I think we can all, if you've ever listened to this before, you can guarantee that Chris hops on every lifetime deal. So he's saying that's the litmus test. But I don't know. I mean, there it is. It's on AppSumo at the moment. It's, what is it? Did you say, Paul? It's $99.
$99 for unlimited sites, I think.
Does look like it's got a theme builder in, because I'm looking at it on the screen. You can insert a header, and then you add your body, for a single, for, I don't know, a custom post type or a WooCommerce product or what have you. And then you can add in the footer as well. So these just amazing. What's possible.
I think it's another performance focused one as well. So, the criticism of a lot of the old systems was there's too many divs. Oxygen came out, and I think they invented the phrase
divception.
Divception, yeah. and then Oxygen was like, hey, it is possible. It's not just Gutenberg that can do this. Then Bricks has come out with a slightly different angle, and now Zion Builder. So there's appetite for companies to take this risk and launch something like this in the world of Gutenberg. So there's still people bringing out their edge cases and saying, hey, I'd be happy with 0.2% of the entire.
Yeah, because it's still a boatload, isn't it? Yeah. Chris, Cameron's saying, I think that Chris's signal, this is Chris's signal. He's been kidnapped.
I think so.
Rescuing. If he uses the words, I have not bought this lifetime deal, somebody quickly phone Chris up. He says the main reason he hasn't bought it is because he needs things like ACF integration and everything else. Unless these builders can get big enough for people to make those add-ons, then they aren't much use to him.
Yep.
It's like a message within a message. Cameron, I'm blinking twice. Is that the signal? Very nice. Very nice. Okay, there we go. Zion Builder. Anything about that one, Phil?
No, not offhand.
No, fair play. Right. Okay, we'll move on. Last one. I just want to bring to everybody's attention that Ninja Forms are 10 years old. We were talking about WS Form a minute ago. Now we're on to Ninja Form. 10 years old, and if you sign up to their list this week, apparently they're going to do a bunch of deals during the course of this week, some of which may be 80% off memberships and add-ons that they've got. I honestly can't speak. I have no inside knowledge into what that means, but it's already started. So if you go to ninjaforms.com/flash-sale, you can get yourself on that list. And they also, if you just scroll down at the bottom, they've also partnered with a bunch of other companies, Codable, Email Octopus, Nexus, Kinster, Give, amongst others. And you can just copy and paste a coupon code on the website, and you'll get some cash off some other plugins as well. So just thought that was a nice little way of celebrating your birthday, not only offering cash off your plugin, but organizing it so that you can have cash off other people's stuff as well. Neat. There we go. Okay, last one is, well, I say last one, it might not be the last one, is the pick of the week. I don't know if Paul and Phil have got one. I do. And it's Professor Brian Cox, the ever youthful Professor Brian Cox, the man who is far cleverer than he should be allowed to be at a far younger age than I am. Did you know about Phil that he was in the charts with a band called D-Ream? He was the guitarist, I think.
No way. I didn't know that.
Yeah. He was in the charts, and he went on tour around Europe and stuff. Yeah. And all at the same time as studying to be, studying at university and finally becoming a professor at Manchester University in physics, which, as we all know, is a really easy thing to do, to become a professor of physics at Manchester University. And he puts together these fabulous programs about the cosmos and space and stuff. And he's been doing it for a decade, and he's got so many programs under his belt now that loads of the stuff that he said 10 years ago and over the preceding years has changed. So he's going back over his programs and saying, here's what I said, and here's what's true now. And oh my goodness, some of it is just so mind-bending. Watch the one about time. It's just like, what? How can that even vaguely be true? It's absolutely brilliant. So highly recommended. If you're not in the UK, you'll have to use a VPN, I think, because the BBC. Mm-hmm. I didn't say that. I didn't actually say do that. Didn't say do that. Not
it's got
ever.
A podcast as well. Is it called The Infinite Monkey Cage?
It's called The Infinite Monkey Cage, and I listen to it every week, and it is brilliant. Yeah, really good. It's about science, but it's a comedy show about science. He's got a comedian sidekick, and it's really good as well. Yeah. So that's my pick of the week. Anybody got anything? Phil,
I can lower
Paul?
the tone. I can lower the tone here. It's a YouTube channel. It's my favorite YouTube channel at the moment, called Viva La Dirt League. Viva La Dirt League, and it's good for nerds, people who are into computer games, video games, Xbox, PlayStation. It's just a comedy YouTube channel. Really funny. So check out Viva La Dirt League.
Do you know what? Like, I don't know if Phil, you've got kids, and I know Paul, you have, but I don't know. Like, nobody watches the telly in my house anymore. The telly is a conduit to watching online stuff. So that's like YouTube or Netflix or whatever. There is no hint that we're going to sit down at 7:00 because this thing is on. And YouTube has always been of really no interest to me. I kind of watch the stuff that I go and look for, but my kids, they just love it. And there are people who are making content, like 18, 17-year-old kids who are just killing it on YouTube, making content. And I'm looking at it thinking, a kid did that. That's like a TV program. You really? And they love it. I tell you, YouTube is a license to print money.
Well, this is a great segue to the site that I'll give. This is a site I use. It's episodecalendar.com. What you can do is it has, a database of thousands or tens of thousands of TV shows and all the episodes that have either aired or when they will be airing. And you set up an account and you can track the shows you've watched. So, I watch a lot of TV, but a lot of it I watch either recorded or, on demand. And this allows me to say, wait, what have I actually seen recently? Or did I miss that episode? Because again, when you watch a lot of TV, it's like, oh, I can't keep track of this. Or if you're binge watching an old series.
So hang on, I've missed the premise there. It keeps track of what you've done. It somehow knows that you've logged in and you've watched this episode on YouTube and this thing.
You log in and it has a calendar of the upcoming shows or any shows that you say, oh, well, I want to track this. It then gives you a series of check boxes that you check off each episode as you watch it.
Nice. Isn't it amazing? Yeah, that is really useful. I confess I'm just not really a television consumer. I've just never really been all that into it. But it's phenomenal to me the way that the internet has taken over what felt to me like a totally rock solid business model, regular TV. And got to worry that people like Brian Cox and his fabulous TV program that I've just mentioned, my concern is that people will only be watching YouTube and stuff like that, that the kind of the marginal content that has only got a tiny audience will kind of get pushed out. And that's my concern. And I won't have I won't have Brian Cox on the telly anymore. Yeah.
Anyway. Viva La Dirt League will still be available to you.
Yeah, of course.
You can go and watch that instead.
Yeah. So spell that for us. Viva La Dirt League. Is it VIVA?
VIVALA. Viva La, and then Dirt League, like dirty mud, and league like football league. Yeah,
got it. Okay.
I think there's probably a few people here probably watch this channel as well. But Phil's suggestion here is really cool. I can see on screen one of the ones is Suits, and this is really useful because Suits was on Netflix, and but it was one of those things where you didn't get the latest season. So when you got up to the thing, you're like, right, Suits is now on season 7 or something, but I'm stuck at the end of season 5. I can't watch season 6 yet. And then you just go away from it. And then 3 or 4 years later, you're like, I was somewhere in Suits, but I'm too intimidated to go in and try and figure out where I was and figure out what had happened. And so if you're kind of keeping track of where you were, then that's great, especially if that system kind of has like a quick synopsis of, that's the thing sometimes when these shows are, you don't see them for like 2 or 3 years, you forget what was even going on.
During the pandemic, there was this plugin that we installed, extension that we installed into Chrome. I think it was called Watch Party or something, and it integrated with Netflix, and it allowed you to basically have a comment thread like we've got here, but you're all watching the same program, and somebody has the ultimate control of when you press stop and when you press play. And we did it a couple of times. It was really good. It was really nice fun. Loads of little services like that cropping up.
Yeah, my daughter was using it. Yeah, with her friends watching films together. It was really cool.
Yeah, Disney Plus now has that built into their platform, and I think everybody is doing it. But and actually what this also gave me was once I had caught up on all the current shows that I watch. It was like, oh, well, here's a show, that is, from 5-10 years ago that I always wanted to see. I never had time then. And let me start watching that. And so I keep track of that as well in there. So, yeah, no, and this is built, this is one of those sites that I think it's built by like a single guy. He talks about the technical things, like it's Ruby on Rails, I know, is what he uses for building this. And, it's, I like supporting the small guy when I can on certain things.
Yeah, that's nice. And of course, YouTube, if they're successful, will, I'm sure they'll probably buy him up for a large amount of money because it gets people to watch more because it figures out what you haven't yet finished watching. Oh, good grief! Oculus, that's the thing that goes on your face, right?
Yeah,
the Facebook thing.
VR headset. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if I'm ready for that. No, I'm not ready for that. But anyway, there you go. That's it. I think we're done. That we've got everything done that we want to do. So I'm going to say goodbye. Normally, when we end this show, there's this sort of like awkward wavy bit. Because I don't know how long it's going to take for the stream to end. I have no idea if we're going to have an awkward wavy bit.
I think we should do a 2-second wave. So that we don't just do a microsecond wave, then hit the button and see what happens.
Okay, so if we all wave,
ready?
Right, and we'll start now and we'll go 1, 2, and I'll hit...